Okay, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha HaKodash, and double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Shalom to the whole leg. And today, I want to get into, how you are going to have deception within its truth, which ultimately isn't the truth, but lies, right? Deception, the deceivers, here to deceive in order to lead people on the incorrect path, to lead them off the correct path into the incorrect one, which ultimately leads them to death, man. So jump right into it. This is 1 Kings chapter 13, right? And this is going to be an example of basically, just that. 1 Kings chapter 13 verse 6, and the king answered and said unto the man of the Most High. And the king at this time, speaking about the king of Israel, Jeroboam, this is, at the beginning when the nations were split. So King Jeroboam, and the king answered and said unto the man of the Most High, i.e. a prophet, entreat now the face of the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua thy God, and pray for me, that my hand may be restored me again. And the men of the Most High besought the Lord Yahweh, and the king's hand was restored him again, and became as it was before. And the king said unto the man of the Most High, come home with me, and refresh thyself, and I will give thee a reward. And the man of the Most High said unto the king, if thou wilt give me half thine house, I will not go in with thee, neither will I eat bread nor drink water in this place. Right, so why is that? For so was it charged me by the word of the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, saying, eat no bread, nor drink water, nor turn again by the same way that thou camest. Right? So because this prophet, prayed to the Lord to fix up the king's hand, the king was like, you know what? Come back with me. I'm gonna take you to my place. You're gonna eat good, and make sure you eat, drink, make sure you're good. And and he's like, no, even if you were to give me half of everything you had, right? If you were to give me all of these things in abundance, I still wouldn't come, and do those things. Why? Because the Lord specifically told me not to, right? So he's, basically being obedient to the words of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, and ultimately, keeping his faith. And again, liken that unto our times now, that is standing firm in the words of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, and being obedient to those words, obedient to the letter, right? You're not gonna select your acid reflux, but you're not going to, the Lord's not going to tell you to do something, and then you figure, oh, well, the Lord said I couldn't do this, but he didn't say I couldn't do this, which is kind of like doing this, but, it's not really doing this. So technically, I'm not really doing that. No, you're not going to, you wouldn't try to do anything like that to try and get one over on the Lord. Because ultimately that just shows your character, shows where you're at, shows your spirit, which is still showing disobedience to the Lord. Even thinking you can try and get one over on the Lord like that. But ultimately, you're being obedient. But it's, can you stay like that? Verse 7, and the king said unto the man of the Most High, come home with me and refresh thyself, and I will give thee a reward. Okay, you read that. For so it was charged me by the word of the Lord, saying, eat no bread, nor drink water, nor turn again by the same way that thou camest. So he went another way, and returned not by the way that he came to Bethel. Now there dwelt an old prophet in Bethel, and his sons came and told him all the works that the man of the Most High had done that day in Bethel. The words which he had spoken unto the king, them they told also to their father, right? So they're, they were there. They witnessed it. And I'm pretty sure, others were there and witnessed it as well. But the story's focusing on them. Verse 12, and their father said unto them, what way went he? for his sons had seen what way the man of the Most High went, which came from Judah. And he said unto his sons, Saddle me the ass. So they saddled him the ass, and he rode thereon, and went after the man of the Most High, and found him sitting under an oak tree. And he said unto him, Art thou the man of the Most High? Thou camest from Judah? And he said, I am. And then he said unto him, Come home with me, and eat bread. And he said, I may not return with thee, nor go in with thee, neither will I eat bread, nor drink water with thee in this place. And why is that? The same thing he just told King Jeroboam. The Lord told him not to do that. So he's telling him, no, I cannot do this. Right? Verse 17, For it was said to me by the word of the Lord, Yahweh Ba'ashem Abishai, Thou shalt eat no bread, nor drink water, nor turn again to go by the way that thou camest. So again, he has to reiterate it. The Lord told me not to do this. I'm not doing it. You know? And that's again, that's reflecting on the fight that we're in now, especially dealing with us being in the flesh, how we have to constantly, try to be obedient with the Lord. Because just as, you have the king and you have this other, man of the Most High, an old prophet, trying to get him to do the opposite of what the Lord told him to, even though they don't know it, it's still happening. It's the same thing now. You got people around us, this ultimately the world around us, and this flesh that we're in, trying to get us to do what the Lord told us not to do. So it's a constant battle. And that's why I said earlier is, can you endure in that obedience to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai? Because that's when it matters. He said unto him, I am a prophet also, as thou art. And an angel spake unto me by the word of the Lord, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, saying, Bring him back with thee into thine house, that he may eat bread and drink water. But he lied unto him. So boom. You see how he just spit this immaculate lie to this man? And let's see what happens next. So he went back with him and did eat bread in his house and drink water. And right then and there, he disobeyed the words of the Heavenly Father. All because another guy came to him and lied, claimed to be a prophet, claimed to have also, been given words to by Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, and therefore lied, therefore deceived, this other prophet into disobeying the Lord. And again, liking that unto our time now, it's the same thing. All these false prophets, false teachers out here, basically spreading lies, telling you how, they're a servant of the Lord, that they are prophets, the Lord's using them, so on and so forth, and telling you lies, man. The false doctrines, the wine of this world, telling you that everyone can be saved, telling you that, telling you to take the MOTB, right? The micro, the C-hib is not the MOTB. Lies like that, telling you that we don't have to keep the laws. Oh, Jesus came and, did away with the law so we can live how we want. All of the lies that are going to get you to disobey the Heavenly Father, again, as we said earlier, leading to your death. Which is why scriptures speak about being rooted in what you've learned, being rooted in what was told to you, and being rooted in that faith and belief on the words of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. Now let's get the book. Because then, if you're rooted, nothing anyone says or does can uproot you. Unless, of course, it's the will of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai for that to happen. So let's get first. Right, let's get First Corinthians chapter 3. This is First Corinthians chapter 3 verse 11, and it reads, "For other foundation can no man lay than that is laid, which is Yahweh Shai HaMashiach." And that's the foundation, the only foundation that we need to be rooted in. Once we're rooted in that foundation, like I said, can't anyone uproot you, unless it's the will of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. But that is the foundation, the true gospel of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. That is what we stick to. That is what we adhere to, and that's what we obey. And if you do that, then like I said, you can hear some shit and you yourself immediately would know that it's off. You build a level of discernment. Now let's get the book of Colossians chapter 2 verse 4, and it reads, "And this I say, lest any man should beguile you with enticing words," right? As the older prophet did to that one. He beguiled him with enticing words, saying, "Oh, I'm also a prophet of the Lord, and the Lord gave me a word telling you to come back and eat with me." Well, even if that is true, you stick to what the Lord told you, man. And now we know that the Lord isn't directly speaking with men just yet, but he's speaking to them through the men that he's raised up to use as, mouthpieces, to use as his vessels to bring out his words. You have our apostles, elders of GMS, the brothers on down. "And this I say, lest any man should beguile you with enticing words. For though I be absent in the flesh, yet am I with you in the spirit, joining and beholding your order and the steadfastness of your faith in Hamashiach." Steadfastness, right? Let's look into this word. The Greek stereoma, that which has been made firm. The firmament, the arch of the sky, I'm not talking about that. A fortified place, that which furnishes a foundation on which a thing rests firmly, support, firmness, steadfastness, metaphorically in a military sense, solid front, right? So that solidness, that firmness, that being rooted, in your faith of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, being deadlocked in, unwavering, to the point where, nothing can throw you off your pivot, man. "As ye have therefore received the Mashiach Yahushai the Lord, so walk ye in him, rooted and built up in him, and established in the faith, as ye have been taught, abounding therein with thanksgiving. Beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, after the tradition of men," right? And that is, a lot of that is going on. There's no coincidence that, the elder apostle Tahar coined this year, I believe, the year of apostasy. Is it sellouts, bug outs, and agents? Something along those lines. But yeah, man, there's a lot of wine being spread. There's a lot of lies, false doctrine, just complete deception being spread, because we're closer to the end. So these devils, are working their hardest to deter, the righteous. to deter the truth. Beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit after the tradition of men, right? Tradition of men, because ultimately most of these false doctrines, what makes them false is that they're trying to cater to the entire world, cater to the people of this world, cater to the way of this world, cater to the immorality of this world, the tradition of men, which causes it to go off. Because this truth isn't for the world, man. It's only for the elect of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. It's not even for all of Israel right now. So you cannot make it be for the world. That alone lets you know that it's just off. After the tradition of men and the rudiments of the world. There we go. And not after Hamashiach, which is who? We just read how Yahweh Shai, he is that foundation. So if the words that people are teaching to you, quote unquote, preaching to you, if it's not pertaining to the words of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, then it's not the truth, man. It's not the true gospel. There is no foundation there, which is why you ultimately end up being uprooted. Which is why, those things are going to lead to your death. Just as it's going to happen with, this prophet here, because he ended up disobeying the Lord because of lies, man. That's why just being obedient to the word of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai and being rooted in what you were taught, as we read, is important. It keeps your radar up, your defense up. When you've been told some bullshit. And that's going to be, real important in the times that we're coming into. It could be life or death. You might run into someone while you want to run into someone, claiming to be a brother. They might know where we can, go find some food or whatever. And they straight up take your ass to a camp. They lead you right into the hands of Esau. They might have been a sellout the whole time, leading people to Esau, to get captured or whatnot. But because you fell for the words, you fell for the trap. So again, and that's also why the scriptures say study to show thyself approved. Because in studying, you are building up your defense. You're building up that discernment. Because you're learning for sure what the word of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai is. And also picking up, key things to build up yourself in this faith along the way. That's why scriptures also speak about the spiritual armor, so on and so forth. So, you're just building up. You're just growing. You're growing yourself in this truth, man. To the point where again, when something is off. If it doesn't adhere to the words of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, then we don't adhere to it. If it causes, if it's the opposite of what we were told to do or told not to do by Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, then we know not to do it. It's just that simple. No matter what another man says. It would be different if, an angel came down to the man. He watched the angel come down. He told him. And then even then, you still got to be like, I don't know about this. That's when you inquire with the Lord. Show me a sign. Right? But again, if you're meant to be deceived, you're going to be deceived, right? That's Job chapter 12, and we can get to that. But continuing here, let's get Ephesians chapter 3 verse 17, and it reads that Hamashiach may dwell in your hearts by faith, that ye, being rooted and grounded in love, may be able to comprehend with all saints what is the breadth and length and depth and height. So basically what he's saying, right, being rooted and grounded in love, what is that love? The love that the Lord has showed us in giving us his truth, in having, his son be sacrificed for us, and bringing his truth in order for our salvation, right? That's the love. May be able to comprehend with all saints what is the breadth and length and depth and height, and to know the love of Hamashiach, which passeth knowledge, that ye might be filled with the fullness of the Most High, right? So basically, knowing it all. But as we read here, that comes with being rooted and grounded, and continuing in that. It's cold as hell. Now let's go back to 1 Kings to finish off this story. Chapter, where were we? We started verse 18 again. He said unto him, I am a prophet also, as thou art. And an angel spaketh unto me by the word of the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Abishai, saying, bring him back with thee into thine house, that he may eat bread and drink water. But he lied unto him. So again, likening that onto, these false prophets today. You got these preachers in these churches, some niggas on YouTube, and just all these demons spreading lies, man. Leading people to destruction. Leading people to death. Verse 19, so he went back with him and did eat bread in his house and drink water, again disobeying the words of Yahweh Ba'ashem Abishai. And it came to pass, as they sat at the table, that the word of the Lord Yahweh came unto the prophet that brought him back. And he cried unto the man of the Most High that came from Judah, saying, thus saith the Lord Yahweh, for as much as thou hast disobeyed the mouth of the Lord, right, and has not kept the commandment which the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Abishai thy God commanded thee, but camest back and hast eaten bread and drunk water in the place of the which the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Abishai did say to thee, eat no bread and drink no water, thy carcass shall not come unto the sepulchre, Salakia, of thy fathers. So the one that just deceived him, right, the old prophet, the spirit of the Lord hopped on him, and he's telling him off, rebuking his ass. Basically telling him, you fucked up, you just disobeyed the Lord, he told you not to do this, you knew not to do this, yet you still did it. And it came to pass, after he had eaten bread and after he had drunk, that he saddled for him the ass, to wit, for the prophet whom he had brought back. And when he was gone, a lion met him by the way, and slew him, and his carcass was cast in the way, and the ass stood by it, the lion also stood by the carcass. And behold, men passed by, and saw the carcass cast in the way, and the lion standing by the carcass, and they came and told it in the city where the old prophet dwelt. So there you go. That's the judgment. He disobeyed the Lord, and he was judged for it, man. He was put to death. And the Lord had a lion fuck him up. And you see how before then, he knew what the words were, right? He told the king, the Lord said I'm not to eat bread, nor to drink water, nor to go back the same way I came. So now I can't do it, right? This guy comes, he tells him, now the Lord say I can't eat, I can't drink water. All right, Slakia for the interruption. I got a phone call, but picking up where I left off. You see how the man knew what the words were, right? Likening unto us nowadays, it would be those who know the truth. Knew what the words were, but then someone came and lied. Someone came and deceived him. Someone came and told him nothing but, false. Slakia. And he fell for it. Hook, line, and sinker. Yo, I'm a prophet too. The Lord told me this. Just come on and eat. The Lord told me to bring you here. But what did the Lord tell you? You stick by what the Lord told you. And what did the Lord tell us? All the things that we've learned through our teachers, man. The proper things, the true gospel of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. To obey the laws, the commandments, right? To the best of our abilities. To not take the MOTB. To study to show ourselves approved. Walk in the ways of righteousness, to try and walk after the ways of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. Don't just say, oh, the Lord died for our sins, we could do what we want. No, that's not what we were taught to do. Because you have people who really, push that. The Lord died for our sins. I can eat pork. That's why Yahushua died. They would say abominable things like that, which is just wrong. But finishing up here, and when the prophet that brought him back from the way heard thereof, he said it is that Salakia. He said, it is the man of the Most High who was disobedient unto the word of the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. Therefore the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai hath delivered him unto the lion. So again, you be disobedient to the Lord, you're judged for it. And ultimately that final judgment will be death. In our times, it would be death by what? That second death, that lake of fire, which is America, Babylon the Great, on fire through these thermal, these nukes and the divine fire from the chariots of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, which hath torn him and slain him according to the word of the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, which spake unto him. And again, what this is showing us is how the Lord is in control, right? Because we read how Salakia, we read how the lion did his job and then just stood by the carcass. It killed him, right? Normally when lions make their kill, they fuck the carcass up. They continue eating at it until they're done with their their food, their meal. And then you have a mangled carcass, skin all everywhere and things like that. But not this one, right? The lion killed him and just stood there, letting you know that the Lord is in control. The Lord put the spirit on that lion to kill him and stay there, man. Because that's exactly what's gonna happen to 2/3 of our people as everyone else here that the Lord judges. It's going to be judgment from the Lord, and he's going to make it be known that it's from him, just like he's doing with this lion. Therefore the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai hath delivered him unto the lion, which hath torn him and slain him according to the word of the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, which he spake unto him. And he spake to his sons, saying, Saddle me the ass. And they saddled him. And he went and found his carcass cast in the way, and the ass and the lion standing by the carcass. The lion had not eaten the carcass, nor torn the ass. Right? Normally, if there's a dead carcass right there, a lion is going to fuck it up. If there's a mule or donkey or whatever, that's free eats for the lion. Yet the lion is standing here as if, just standing there. Again, letting you know this is the workings of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai. And it's undeniable. And again, it's going to be the same way in our time when the Lord brings his judgment. It's going to be undeniable that this is the God of the Bible, man. You know, scriptures say he alone will be exalted in that day. But sticking to the main point, this prophet knew the words, but because he wasn't rooted, he wasn't grounded in his faith, he wasn't grounded or rooted in the obedience to those words of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai, he disobeyed him off of lies, which led to his death. That is the bad ending, right? We want the good ending. We're rooted in his faith, we're built up in the faith, and we obey it unto the end. That's why scriptures say, he that endureth unto the end shall be saved. No matter what, man. Let's get the book of Job, chapter 12, verse 15, I believe. Verse 16. We start at verse 15. This is Job chapter 12, verse 15. And it reads, behold, he withholdeth the waters, and they dry up. Also he sendeth them out, and they overturn the earth. Going into what? The power of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai, which, you know, we just read about, how he had the lion kill him, yet he just stood there. Verse 16, with him is strength and wisdom, the deceived and the deceiver are his. So not only is the one telling the lies controlled by Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai, but the one falling for the lies is controlled by Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai. Because Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai is, the Most High is in control of it all. Which lets you know that ultimately the Lord is the one deceiving the people. You know, and why is that? Because there are certain people that the Lord wants to be deceived, that the Lord wants to die, wants to be deceived so that he is justified in killing them. You know, and that's just the way it is. To get that, let's get the book of John chapter 12, verse 37. And it reads, but though he had done so many miracles before them, yet they believed not on him. How and how is that possible, right? Just think to yourself, how is that possible? Yet you had Yahushai here in the flesh doing miracles before, you know, so many people, yet they still didn't believe on him. How is that possible? This has to be, you know, there has to be some God blocking these people's minds. That's the only way it'll be possible. And that's the only way it was possible. Because how can you literally see it and not believe it? That's like me holding a penny in front of your hand and like, look, I'm holding a penny. And you're like, nah, you're not holding a penny, bro. You see the penny in my hand. You're still in disbelief. You're not holding a penny. That's not a penny. I don't see any penny. And it's like, how, where's the disconnect? Right? Verse 38, that the saying of Isaiah, the prophet might be fulfilled, which he spake, Lord, who hath believed our report? And to whom hath the arm of the Lord been revealed? Therefore they could not believe, because that Isaiah said again, he hath blinded their eyes and hardened their heart, their spirit, that they should not see with their eyes spiritually, nor understand with their heart spiritually, and be converted, and I shall heal them. Right? So what happened was, as we said, the Lord purposely blinded them just so that they couldn't be healed, just so that they couldn't understand and hearken unto the words, which would mean the Lord would have to heal them, because now they're obeying him. He didn't want that. So you know what? To keep that from happening, let me just make y'all not even able to understand and hearken unto the words, not able to perceive the words. Therefore, y'all still going to be disobedient, and I can judge y'all. Right? That's the power of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai. Let's get this in the NLT. And it reads, the Lord has blinded their eyes and hardened their hearts, so that their eyes cannot see and their hearts cannot understand, and they cannot turn to me and have me heal them. Right? And what does that show us again? How Yahweh Shai is that foundation, right? Turn to me and I can heal them, because it's only through Yahweh Shai that we can get to the Father. It's only through Yahweh Shai that we can be purified, that we can be cleansed, that we can be healed. So that's why, going back to Job, Salakia 12 and 16, it says that the deceived and the deceiver are his. Because ultimately the Lord is the one doing the deceiving. He's the one, doing the blocking. The one not allowing you to perceive the truth, and also the one allowing you to perceive the lies. And also the one allowing us to perceive the truth and discern between the lies and the truth. The Lord is in control of it all, man. And the more you understand that, the more you know to be obedient, because that brings in fear. Got to stay on his good side. That's also a humbling thought. But the Lord likes that humbleness. Now continuing, let's get the book of Matthew chapter 24. In verse 24. And it reads, then if any man shall say unto you, lo, here is a Mashiach, or there, believe it not. Again, liken that unto the false prophet and the older prophet. He said, oh, I'm a prophet of the Lord too. The word of the Lord was spoken unto me too. He told me to tell you to come back and eat with me and, chill with me. Whole time he was lying. Then if any man shall say unto you, lo, here is a Mashiach, or there, believe it not. For there shall arise false anointeds. And how is it he's saying believe it not? Well, how are we supposed to know if he's telling the truth or not? By being rooted in the gospel of Yahweh B'Shem Awashai, being rooted in what we were taught, being rooted in the truth. Once you're rooted in the truth, you know the do's and the don'ts, right? You know what is correct and what is wrong. If you're rooted in the truth, we know that the MOTB is the micro C-hib, the implant, the implant, right? If someone says, if they later down the line, they say, okay, guys, we're ditching digital IDs, we're ditching regular IDs, we're ditching digital IDs, and we're bringing out this implant that everyone must get, or else you can't buy or sell, then we know that's what? That's the MOTB. If they bring that out and say, oh, this is not the MOTB, then obviously we know that is a lie. And another thing that people lie about is the fact that we don't have to keep the laws. That is not scriptural. Scripture says that the laws isn't going to bring us salvation. We aren't going to be saved from our keeping of the laws, but we still have to keep them. We're going to be saved through our faith in Yahweh B'Shem Awashai, but we show that by being obedient to the words of Yahweh B'Shem Awashai. And part of those words is the laws that were given to us by Yahweh B'Shem Awashai. The laws determined that we were disobedient in the first place. How could they not make, how would we not need them to be obedient? That doesn't even make sense. Right? But continuing, for there shall arise false anointed and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, and so much that, if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. So if it were possible, they would even deceive the very elect. It goes to show you how, you know, how great the lies are going to be, first off, because if it were possible, they'd even deceive the elect. But it's not possible, because as we read, Salakia, the deceived and the deceivers are his, and so are those that aren't deceived, which is the elect. The Lord is not going to allow them to be deceived, because he had them rooted in what they learned. He had them study up, you know, to rightly divide the word of truth. Rightly. If you rightly divide in the word of truth, that means you know when it's wrong. You know when it's not truth. You know when it's being wrongly divided, right? That's going to be the Lord's elect. Lord willing, we be of that number. Now let's get the book of John chapter 14, verse 15. And it reads, right, speaking, this is Yahweh Shai speaking. We start at verse 14. It's John chapter 14, verse 14. If ye shall ask anything in my name, I will do it. What name? Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. If ye love me, keep my commandments. Now again, a huge lie that people tell is that we don't need to keep the commandments anymore, right? The Yahweh Shai came, you know, his sacrifice. He died on the cross for us, you know. We don't have to keep that anymore. Well, that is a lie. Yahweh Shai himself telling us, if we love him, keep his commandments. And again, what were those commandments? They were words spoken to us that we need to keep by Yahweh, the Most High, which would make us disobedient for not keeping them. And we just read about what happens to those who are disobedient to the Lord. So again, you know, you have false prophets, false preachers, you know, those who claim to be anointed, claim to be Hamashiach, telling you lies that are going to lead to your death. And one of them is we do not have to keep the laws. But because we're in the flesh, we know that we aren't going to keep them perfectly, but we should still keep them. You know, still try your best. Because that shows the Lord that you're trying to be obedient. Well, you are being obedient. You just, you know, can't completely do it because we're in this flesh. And the Lord knows that. That's why he's not looking for us to be perfect. But because of our trying to be perfect, we are going to be looked at as perfect in his eyes, you know, spotless, blameless, through Yahweh Shai. That's why he, you know, died on the cross. For us to be able to be found blameless before the Lord, even though we aren't. Jumping down to the 21st verse, he doubles down, and it reads, he that hath my commandments and keepeth them, he it is that loveth me. And he that loveth me shall be loved of my Father. And I will love him, and I will manifest myself to him. Right now, it's the Yahweh Shai manifesting himself to us through the Spirit. Which allows us to, you know, be rooted, to grow in the faith, to keep the laws to the best of our abilities, so on and so forth. It's all through the Spirit of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. And with that Spirit of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, comes, you know, discerning deception. Because with the Holy Spirit of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, we do things that are going to garner us everlasting life, right? Not death. Obeying the Lord to salvation, not disobeying the Lord to damnation. Let's get the book of First John. It's the book of First John chapter 2 verse 4. And it reads, he that saith, I know him, and keepeth not his commandments, is a liar, and the truth is not in him. So there you have it. If you're saying we don't have to keep the laws and teaching others to do so, then the truth is not in you. As we've been saying, right? You're a liar, man. False prophet. The Lord is not dealing with you. Because in so many words, you're saying, don't listen to the Lord. Disobey the Lord. That's all you're saying. And the truth is not in him. But whoso keepeth his word, in him verily is the love of the Most High perfected. Hereby know we that we are in him. Let me reread that. Verse 5. But whoso keepeth his word, in him verily is the love of the Most High perfected. What did we just say? It's the love of the Most High perfected because you are doing the things that are going to reach that salvation, right? You're doing the things that the elect would be doing. Obeying the Lord unto salvation, not the opposite. Because it's not that you're perfected. You aren't perfect. But in doing those things, you're perfecting the love, which is what, us being given this truth, us, the Yahweh Shai dying on the cross for us to be made perfect in the eyes of the Lord, for us to have that ability. Because we were completely, the Lord, we were through, man, without Yahweh Shai. So that was love shown to us. And those who keep the Lord's commandments, i.e. obey the Lord, because that's all it really is. Just being obedient. Not just the laws, but all the words of Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai. That's all the Lord wants is obedience. For us to know our place as his servants, as his children, as his creation. But whoso keepeth his word, in him verily is the love of the Most High perfected. Hereby know we that we are in him. He that saith he abideth in him, Salakia, he that saith he abideth in him ought himself also so to walk, even as he walked. Right? So how can you say you abide in this truth, you abide in Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai, yet you're not keeping the laws? Yeah. Salakia, Yahweh Shai was perfect. He didn't break not one law. Here it is. You're saying Yahweh Shai died for us so we can break them all. How does that show that you're being obedient? How does that show your love? How does that show that you're walking after Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai by doing the opposite of what Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai did? It's not possible. So that's why, the apostles and elders and brothers, the bishops, they say it's not the fact that we're keeping the laws that's going to save us, but we're trying to walk after the ways of Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai. You cannot do that without trying to keep the laws. It's not possible. Not that that's going to save you, but that shows your faith. That shows your obedience. Now we can close it off here in the book of 1 Timothy chapter 4. You start at the top here. Apostasy. It's 1 Timothy chapter 4 verse 1. Now the Spirit speaketh expressly that in the latter times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils, i.e. lies, deceit, which why we read 1 Kings chapter 13. That's exactly what happened to the prophet. You know, the it was subtitled the disobedient prophet, I believe, because he gave heed to ultimately the doctrine of a devil, right? To seduce his spirit to lies, which led to his death. And as we read here, in the latter times, we're in the latter times, we're in the end times, man. A lot of people are going to, fall victim to this as well. But for us, truly following off the ways of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai, this is why we read, to better build ourselves spiritually, mentally, to fight against these things. Because we don't want to end up in this position, man. Speaking lies and hypocrisy, having their conscience seared with a hot iron. Means what? Dead, right? Let's get this in the NLT. These people are hypocrites and liars, and their consciences are dead. Exactly. It reads, forbidding to marry and commanding to abstain from meats, which the Most High hath created to be received with thanksgiving of them which believe and know the truth, right? And which this is going into, during the times, still now, you had a bunch of different religions, right? Which come with what? You have a false religion. You're going to have false prophets teaching that religions, right? And in these religions, you had them saying how, we aren't to marry, we aren't to eat meat, like at all, So here the apostles are saying, these are lies, forbidden to marry and commanding to abstain from meats, which the Most High hath created to be received with thanksgiving, talking about the lawful meats, right? Which the Most High hath created to be received with thanksgiving of them which believe and know the truth. For every creature of the Most High is good, and it's nothing to be refused if it be received with thanksgiving, right? Because you also had, let's say there was a pagan sacrifice of a certain lawful meat, and you might have had some Israelites who didn't feel comfortable eating that meat because it was a pagan sacrifice, versus you had some who did, because they were more, I wouldn't want to say more rooted, but they were just more comfortable with it because they know who their God was, they know who they believed in. Eating the meat wasn't anything to them. They were blessed in the name of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai, and now they got them some food. But you might have brothers who aren't like that. They just don't want to deal with it at all. Both is fine, but he's saying how, as you read it, if it be received with thanksgiving, received in Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai with thanksgiving, then you're straight. As long as it's, lawful, right? Not talking about anything abominable, then obviously you shouldn't be eating it. For it is sanctified by the word of the Most High and prayer. Exactly. I feel like I'm losing my voice. But main point being here, right, pretty much the first two verses, how in these times you're going to have seducing spirits, doctrines of devils, right? So just to, keep our guards up. Remember what we were taught, because we are coming into these, we're in the end times, but we're coming, if we're already in the end times, then how much more when time passes, right? So these are the things that we need to fortify our minds, fortify our spirit, fortify our faith in Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai. And just continuously pray, to have that spiritual armor on. That's why scriptures say we're fighting against spiritual wickedness in high places. Because it's attacking the spirit. Once you defeat the spirit, you defeat the man with it. you defeat the flesh as well. Because you control the spirit, you control the flesh as well. That's why you have certain spirit hop on people and they get the bugging out. A certain spirit will hop on someone and they go grab a knife and kill someone else. Once the spirit is, being controlled, the flesh with it. That's why scriptures put a focus on building the spirit, not the physical man, not the flesh, but the spirit. Because through the building of the spirit comes the real strength. If it's built up, in Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. But, that's pretty much it. Lord willing, this video was edifying, uplifting, informative in some way, shape, or form. And what's more, I would like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, B'Shem Ruach HaKodesh, and double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and Shalom to the hopeful elect.